9 foods that don't spike your blood sugar and the tip that can turn your diabetes around. Just with a simple tip I'll tell you at the end of this video. These foods don't cause a blood sugar spike. They're great for people with diabetes. I'm an endocrinologist, a diabetes specialist. I'll share some of my experience and a lot of scientific evidence in this video. So it's 9. I'll start in descending order. Don't forget to stick around for the tip, okay? Number 9 is eggplant. It can be raw eggplant. It can be roasted eggplant, whichever you prefer, because eggplant is low in carbohydrates. So it's not going to spike your blood sugar. And besides being low in carbs, it's also rich in fiber, including a soluble fiber that can help with your cholesterol, increasing the good cholesterol and also decreasing the bad cholesterol, which is excellent for those who have diabetes and need to monitor their cholesterol. We know that diabetics need to pay extra attention to their cholesterol levels, since it can also be a risk factor for cardiovascular diseases. And before you ask in the comments, what's bad isn't cholesterol, but an excess of cholesterol. That indeed is linked to an increased risk of cardiovascular diseases, such as heart attacks and strokes. So, number 9, eggplant. Number 8 is guava. Guava is a fantastic fruit for those with diabetes because it's low in carbohydrates, so it won't spike your blood sugar. In addition to providing antioxidant vitamins, it's great for your health and also possesses some fiber. Moreover, the carbohydrate found in guava is low on the glycemic index, which makes guava one of the best fruits for people with diabetes, if not the best. I'd also like to include here other low glycemic index fruits. But can diabetics eat fruit? Not only can they, but they should. This is the thing I spoke about. You should preferably choose fruits with a lower glycemic index with a smaller amount of fructose. Just like the issue with cholesterol, what's harmful isn't fructose, it's an excess of fructose. So there are some really good fruits, yes, and if you're diabetic, you should definitely include them in your diet. Later on, I'll provide a more complete list of fruits, but I'm going to continue here with foods that don't raise glucose levels. Number 7 is peanuts. Peanuts won't raise your blood sugar levels. Why? Because they are rich in good fats, unsaturated fats like polyunsaturated and monounsaturated fats, which are good for your body. They may even increase your good cholesterol, the HDL. So if you're diabetic, it's not just peanuts I'm talking about here because they're usually cheaper. Many people discuss nuts like walnuts, hazelnuts, macadamia, cashews, Brazil nuts. Many people say they're expensive, but don't forget about peanuts. So peanuts are a part of this group as well. They also contain what's known as omega-9 and omega-6, and they can contribute a lot to your health. You just need to be careful. As with other nuts like walnuts, Brazil nuts, peanuts are also very caloric. So you need to watch the amount of peanuts you consume, but they're beneficial and will not increase your blood sugar. And why can an excess of calories harm diabetics? Even if you don't notice it in the short term, for example, if you consume an excess of peanuts over several days, you're also taking in an excess of calories. It'll increase your fatty tissue, the adipose tissue, and this fat that you'll accumulate will further impair the action of insulin in the process of insulin resistance. And then in the long term, it can raise your blood sugar more. This explanation applies to other foods as well. Oftentimes you have a mistaken idea, I can eat this food because it doesn't raise my blood sugar. But in the long run, through this process that I've explained, it's going to increase and it's going to worsen glycemic control. Of course, the key to all of it is moderation. Here I'm talking about the excess of peanuts, the 6th food that doesn't raise your blood sugar. But before I tell you what this food is, I'm going to ask you to like this video. Let's set a goal of 9,000 likes, 1,000 likes for each food that I'm going to explain in this video. Oh no, 10,000 likes is going to be the target because there's a tip at the end that you can't miss. So 10,000 is our goal. Like it, and it already helps. And it can also help this video reach other diabetics in need of this information. Number 6 is chicken meat. Chicken meat is a lean protein, low in fats as well as carbohydrates. You just have to be careful to remove that little skin. That little skin can raise your cholesterol because it's very rich in saturated fats. Unlike peanut fat, Saturated fat can raise your cholesterol, and excessive consumption of saturated fat is also a risk factor for cardiovascular diseases. We already know that. Many people still say that animal fat is not harmful to our body, which is a big lie. Yes, it is harmful, and scientific studies already show that. Number 5 is the egg. The egg is one of the best foods in the world because it's also a source of protein. Each egg has an average of 6 grams of protein, which is great, but it also has vitamins like B vitamins. It has choline. It has vitamins that can help with your vision. So it's great. It's really good for your health to eat eggs. And there's no reason for you to take out the yolk. There are a lot of people who say, oh no, the white is good, but the yolk is bad. That's also a big lie. Just look at how many myths I'm talking about in this video. Just look at how important it is for an expert to comment on the subject. So, the egg, the white, and the yolk, they're both good for your health. Oh, but I've heard that if I eat a bunch of eggs a day, 12, 15 eggs, well then of course it'll hurt you. Guys, here I'm talking about eating 1 to 2 eggs a day. It's extremely good for you if you're diabetic. Number 4 is cocoa. Studies have shown that eating 30 grams of cocoa, or it could be dark chocolate, with more than 70% cocoa, can help your body because cocoa has a lot of antioxidants. Cocoa also has iron, which can help with anemia, the main cause of which is iron deficiency. Another comorbidity that also affects diabetics is high blood pressure. And there are studies showing that cocoa can be beneficial for those with high blood pressure, helping to lower it. Look how many positive points I've mentioned about cocoa in just a few seconds. Then you ask me, what's the cocoa dosage? 30 grams of cocoa per day. More than that has no proven benefit. Many people think like this. If I eat 30 grams, I already get this benefit. So if I eat 100, 200 grams of cocoa, well, you won't get any additional benefit. On the contrary, cocoa is a caloric food, and it's also rich in fats. We can't forget that. So 30 grams won't raise your blood sugar. It'll be good for diabetes and blood glucose, and it still has several benefits. Cocoa is one of the best foods. Number 3 is coffee, and I'm a big fan of that one. Coffee is a substance that has been studied a lot for our health because it has antioxidants, amino acids, flavonoids, tocopherol, which is vitamin E, and caffeine itself, which you know is also a studied substance which has benefits for our health. But why doesn't coffee raise your blood sugar? Because it has no carbohydrates, so diabetics can drink coffee very calmly. What's the dose of coffee? Up to 3 cups per day, 200 milliliter cups. So 600 milliliters of brewed coffee, and if it's espresso, up to 3 shots of espresso a day, which would give a maximum of 120 to 150 milliliters of espresso because it has a higher concentration of caffeine, okay? There was a study that saw that people who drank up to 3 cups of coffee a day had a chance 33% lower the risk of developing type 2 diabetes. So coffee can act as a protective factor in addition to all the benefits. A protection factor, you heard it, 33% lower. It's not 100%, so it doesn't mean just because you drink coffee, you're not going to develop type 2 diabetes. That's not it. A protection factor is not a total protection factor, agreed? And here I'm talking about coffee without sugar. It's not worth putting sugar in your coffee because then it will indeed increase your blood sugar. If you use sugar in your coffee, make a gradual withdrawal. Don't try to do it from one day to the next. In 1 week, you put half, the next week half of that. And so you gradually decrease it because after you make this transition like I did, you won't be able to drink coffee with sugar anymore. The taste is different and you will even prefer it. You'll come back to this video and say, look, I managed to remove the sugar from the coffee and now I can't drink it anymore. That was my case. If it was yours too, write in the comments. It's important that other people can read and see that this really happens. If you use sweeteners, give preference to the natural ones, such as there is no study that associates stevia with an increase in some type of cancer or with an increase in any other type of disease. You can use stevia, okay? If you really can't take it without anything. You already know how I take coffee, and now I ask you, and you, how do you take your coffee? What sweetener do you use? Do you take it without anything like me, or do you still put sugar in it? right here because I always enjoy reading. The food number 2 is fish, and I won't restrict it only to fish with good fats like tuna, sardines, salmon. I'm going to include all fish here because they won't raise your blood sugar, they're extremely healthy, they're an excellent source of protein for those with diabetes, okay? So don't limit yourself too much. Because in another video, I discussed the properties of fish with good fats, and many people said, but I don't have access. So if you can't consume these fish that I mentioned, it may be the fish that is most common in your area that won't raise your blood sugar. And the number 1 food, this one I also like quite a bit, is the tomato. Tomatoes, apart from having lots of vitamins, are also low in carbohydrates. Thus, they won't increase your blood sugar. Also, for the men watching the channel, tomatoes contain lycopene, which can protect your prostate. Isn't this information wonderful? I bet you liked it. And now, what is the tip I told you about that would really help manage your diabetes? And I see that most diabetics do not follow it. Did you see that I mentioned these 9 foods that don't raise blood sugar? Diabetes is an individual issue that we haven't been able to clearly explain yet. I remember a case with a patient who came to me and said, "Look, my blood sugar increases when I eat avocados," which I had told him was one of the best fruits. I couldn't believe it. At that time, I was doing my specialization in endocrinology. I'll never forget this story because it was a great lesson for me. I hope it's a lesson for you too because I agreed with the patient. Look, tomorrow you're going to come here, you're going to bring the avocado, and before you eat it, we're going to do the capillary glucose test, that test with the little device, glucometer or glucose meter. I'll put a picture here so you'll know exactly what the test is because it depending on the region you are watching this video, this test may have a different name. So this test with a small device, and we'll also do the test 2 hours later to see if avocado will really increase your glucose levels. And it turns out it did. The avocado, a fruit great for this patient, is not a good fruit. It's a fruit that increases his glucose levels. The lesson we learned from this story is that diabetes has an individual factor. It can vary from person to person. And I talk to a lot of diabetics, and I see that most, even those who use insulin and do the blood sugar test 3-4 times a day, have never made this connection to better understand how the body works. And it's essential that you do it precisely to learn more and really test what works in your case. Often when the patient starts to see, look, this food is bad for me, they can make healthier choices. The nutritionist can also make a personalized plan because they know how to understand what's going on with the patient too. So it's really very beneficial for you to understand the function of food and also what happens to your body, your individual factor. And then you're asking me, but how do I know that a food is being good for me, that it's not raising my blood sugar? What are the values? There are few contents that talk about the value of the capillary glucose test with a gadget, and I will tell you in this video. If you're not diabetic, 2 hours after eating, according to the American Diabetes Society, a good value would be up to 140. But 140 is not a high value. After food is not a high value, why? Naturally, your blood sugar will increase, okay? That's a physiological thing. What is not normal is that blood sugar continues to increase. You wake up with high blood sugar, for example, but after 2 hours, right after eating as well, it is normal through the digestion process that blood sugar will increase a little. That one would be up to 140. If you're already diabetic, this value will change. We can tolerate it up to 180. So, a good value for diabetics who use insulin, for example, is after 2 hours the capillary blood glucose test, up to 180, according to the American Diabetes Society, which is the largest reference on the subject in the world. Did you like this video? From 0 to 10, what grade do you give it? Because if it's 10, I'll make more videos like that. Right here, if this helped you, if you're really gonna have the best diabetes control with this video, it'll be very satisfying for me. Every comment, I read them all, and I really like to read comments like that because it encourages me to keep going. Also, Tell me what part of the world you're watching this video. I'm talking about Porto Alegre. And you, which region do you belong to? You remember that I talked about guava, and I also said that I would talk more about fruits. I've already made a specific video about this. In this video here, I talk about the best fruits for diabetics, and I also talk about the worst. Don't forget to watch. Just click here. A hug. See you next time.